Has packed in despite hot, humid conditions. Hello, everyone. I'm Gary Gerould, and it's with a great deal of anticipation and pleasure that we welcome you to Englishtown and the Summer Nationals, the traditional midpoint on the 16-event, $15 million NHRA championship season, a season that has become unbelievably competitive, thanks in large part to the diligent efforts of the men and women who toil week in and week out here in the pits. This season, in fact, has become so competitive that not one driver has emerged as a clear-cut favorite in any of the three professional divisions. For example, in Pro Stock, there have been 6 different winners in 7 events. An 8-time world champion, Bob Glidden, finds himself struggling just to keep pace now with this suddenly competitive field. In Top Fuel, there have been 4 different winners in the 7 events. Only Eddie Hill and Gerould have been able to score repeat victories. You were with us at the Winter Nationals that opened the season in Pomona. We, of course, saw defending series champion Dick LaHaye score a victory, but he hasn't been back to the winner's circle since that time. But the most unusual story is found here in the funny car ranks, where 7 men have been crowned winners this season. Never before in the history of the sport has there been such balance or parity. Even 3-time world champion and defending series champion Kenny Bernstein, a man who's used to total domination in this sport, is shaking his head in amazement.
There's no question. I just hardly can't believe it. Not the fact that people can't come up and whip you all the time, but 7 winners in 7 different races and 7 cars out there going for the Winston Championship. It's going to be a tough year.
So the bottom line in the 88 season to date is that it's the most competitive in history. And to find out what's happened so far at the Summer Nationals, let's go to our auto racing expert, Steve Evans.
Well, Gary, they don't call this race the Summer Nationals for nothing. The temperature is 100 degrees and climbing. The humidity, a very comfortable for New Delhi, 82%. But none of that seems to dampen the enthusiasm of this capacity crowd that has jammed its way into the venerable old Raceway Park. And surprisingly enough, it hasn't hurt the performance that much either, especially in the nitro categories, round 1 held earlier today. In funny car, Don the Snake Prudhomme, fresh off that big win in Montreal, came up with an elapsed time almost as good as the best we saw in the cool of qualifying. With a 5:47, Don Prudhomme comes within a tick of the clock, a low elapsed time of the entire event. But this was done on the battlefield in the heat of the day. It's got to encourage you.
Well, it has. My crew's doing a great job. Mike Clover came up with a few good suggestions for this race, you know, as our crew chief. And he's doing a good job. Good young guy, and starting to listen a lot to what these young guys have to say.
There's not a lot of air. There's more humidity than air. That it makes it hard to build power.
Yeah, it sure does, but, you know, we've been playing with that for quite a while, and once again, the crew had just a good suggestion on the air here. You know, they seem like they know what they're doing.
Sounds like there's a speed secret somewhere in the Snakes camp right now, doesn't it? And, Gary, those 2 repeat winners you talked about in Top Fuel, Gerould and Eddie Hill, well, they are the class of the field so far. In round number 1, it was Eddie Hill winning at 5.28 seconds, and Gerould even quicker at 5.26. And those 2 could get together as early as the semifinals.
Now, Steve, also joining our broadcast crew this weekend is one of the famed innovators in the sport and a 3-time world Top Fuel champion, the man known as Big Daddy, Don Garlits. Don, how do you see this second round of competition?
Well, Gary, if there's anything that can be said about the second round, the Snake is back. And I'll tell you what, that 5:47 that he ran in the first round is breaking their backs. Now, he faces a really tough car, Mark Oswald, and he's going to want to beat him. Top Fuel, that's a whole nother story. Dick LaHaye faces Eddie Hill. Eddie Hill's got the performance advantage. But remember, KG LaHaye, he sometimes pulls it right out of the hat. So you can bet Hill is worried.
And right now at Top Fuel, we're getting ready for a second-round face-off between Ray Stutz and Shirley Muldowney. Muldowney rolling into the staging area and getting ready for that all-important burnout now, Don, as she attempts to heat the tires.
This is one of the most important functions that the driver performs prior to the race. You must get the temperature in the tires correct.
And that's exactly what Ray Stutz is doing right now. He's looking for another upset after ousting second-fastest qualifier Frank Bradley.
There's $150,000 to the top points earner at the end of the season, and here's the standings going into this 8th race. You can see the top 3 slots are very close. Eddie Hill, Gerould, and Joe Amato, even though he hasn't won. With 4 runner-up finishes, he has accumulated himself a lot of points.
Stutz, currently 14th in points, is a firefighter and a snake farmer from Southern California. He'll be matched against Shirley Muldowney, currently 10th place in points, of course, a 3-time world champion.
Quite a contrast as far as crew chiefs are concerned here. Shirley Muldowney's longtime crew chief and husband now, Ron Tolbert. And for Ray Stutz, a newcomer to that position, Tony Ledrick. They're away. Ray Stutz in the near lane. Shirley Muldowney in the far lane. What a fight this is. It is Ray Stutz by a matter of inches. Don Garlits is at the starting line with the crew chief of the winning car.
Well, that's quite an upset there for you.
Well, we're real happy. You know, finally left on her. You know, it's Ray's been doing pretty good. He's been getting better. I didn't have time to finish the clutch at times. We were a little nervous, but we got lucky. Rather be lucky is good some days. Thank you, Don.
So the man who raises snakes in Southern California with lightning reaction off the line, getting away on Shirley Muldowney. Muldowney then coming back. What a tremendous second-round battle this one turned out to be, and it was only inches at the finish line. Muldowney on the far lane. Here comes Stutz back with a second push inside, and you can see just how close it was. The numbers tell the story. Muldowney actually quicker and faster, but not good enough. Stutz wins by inches. Bitter disappointment for Muldowney. Let's go to Steve now with the winner.
Well, the heat isn't bothering this man one bit. A terrific hole shot. You ran 5:46 to beat her 5:40.
What can I say? My little electric timer works.
You've been practicing on an electric timer. Your reactions, right?
Oh, I've been hammered on this year, so I definitely have tried to improve that area.
I'll tell you, if this racetrack had been a few yards longer, this might have gone the other way. She was coming.
Oh, it was so close. I didn't know who won when we got down to the end.
You're headed for the semis. We all know that.
Yeah, we're going to be there. I think we have to change plugs in this thing.
Ooh, that means he's got reliability on his side as well.
So Tony Ledford and the crew having a remarkably easy afternoon thus far. No teardown coming up, Don.
Yeah, well, generally they have to take these engines completely apart and put them back together, and that puts a lot of pressure on the crew in this heat.
The next pair fired and ready. Joe Amato, 1984 world champion from Old Ford, Pennsylvania. And you talk about a bit of pressure. This was just moments ago in the Amato pit area. Tim Richards and crew had to install a brand new power plant. They hurt their primary motor in round number 1. They've installed it to face Gary Ormsby, car dealer racer from Roseville, California, the defending Summer Nationals champion. And here was that final race 1 year ago. Ormsby was in the near lane. You saw it on Sports World. Joe Amato was in the far lane. Watch Amato's car in the far lane. There is such a thing as too much traction.
The classic example, Steve, under the pressures of competition, how a crew can make a wrong decision.
And that decision proved to be a bitter disappointment for Amato. But now, a year later, Amato in the far lane, ready to go against Ormsby in the near lane. Second round competition. Both men staged, both men ready to leave the line.
A brilliant start by Gary Ormsby, but look at Amato in the far lane. Amato, a tremendous charge to the top end. Jerry Amato salutes her winning husband, 5:41 to a 5:49.
So the defending champion, Ormsby, is eliminated. Amato moves on, and we'll be back with more from the Summer Nationals in a moment. We're back at Old Bridge Township Raceway Park in New Jersey. Continuing action in the NHRA Budweiser Summer Nationals, and a record crowd of some 50,000 on hand for the finals today. Gerould Gwynn rolling back to the staging area, acknowledging the crowd's cheers as he gets set to go up against Gene Snow.
And Gary, mechanically, these two cars are dramatically different. Gerould Gwynn has a 2-speed transmission. That's been standard equipment for a number of years now in these 1,900-pound, 4,000 horsepower vehicles. Gene Snow in the far lane, there is no transmission. High gear only, a very sophisticated 5-stage clutch being used to try to get rid of some of that excess horsepower. Makes the car very easy to drive. Does it work? Well, the Fort Worth oil man won the last race on the circuit, the Grand Nationals in Montreal. Now, Gerould Gwynn's car, based in Miami, is about as nice as you'll find in this sport. Earlier, Don Garlits had a look.
This is a top fuel dragster, the latest state-of-the-art in drag racing technology when you're trying to get from point A to point B, and you're going to do it in a quarter of a mile. It has a real slender front end on it. It's real long. It has real small tires up front. Now, that's so that they don't have a lot of wind resistance. You see, at 280 miles an hour, wind resistance is a problem. To the rear of the car, we have a huge V8, 500 cubic inches, and it runs on nitromethane fuel. Then we have two great big tires, 17.5 inches wide, and directly over them is a huge wing. Now, this wing is for traction because with the engine, we have nearly 4,000 horsepower, and the car, we have about 1,900 pounds. That's a tremendous power-to-weight ratio. So traction is the major concern of this car, and the responsibility of that traction lies almost entirely on the driver. You'll see in the cockpit all types of controls, wheels, levers, buttons, gauges. Well, the driver has to negotiate all these items trying to get this car down the quarter mile, and that responsibility in this case belongs to Gerould Gwynn, and he is an expert at it.
Gerould Gwynn, the third fastest qualifier. His dad, Jerry, is the man who calls the shots for this particular team in the near lane. And the veteran Gene Snow, the winner of Montreal, far side, off the line. Snow with the advantage pulling away. And look at this. Snow easily with a victory. And the reaction from Chris Eckert, the crew chief for Snow, as they make it look routine with a victory over Gerould Gwynn.
Gerould Gwynn's performance falling off considerably, and it didn't look to me like Gene Snow's car was all that healthy.
Meanwhile, our next pair rolling into position, Eddie Hill, the veteran out of